My fellow Americans, are you tired of your daily battle just to make ends meet? Are you personally frustrated because no matter how hard you work, there doesn't seem to be a way to get ahead? Have you lost all hope in ever being able to own your own home, put your kids through college, or save enough to retire comfortably? Well, you're not alone. More and more Americans become just like you every year. Economic inequality and a lack of upward mobility have been getting worse for quite some time. This trend not only jeopardizes the future of our country because it affects our children, but it presents a very real danger right now, one that divides us into the few who have and the many who have not. There is growing unrest, and we are seeing signs of it in the form of protests, conflict, and the rejection of long-standing institutions of society, including efforts to replace capitalism with socialism. When a country experiences inequality and division like this, it is certain that there will be increasing social disorder, economic hardship for many, and a lack of trust in political and economic leaders. Do you trust our political and economic leaders now? I sure don't. There is even the potential for its weakened government to be overthrown. One of the promises that America has always stood for is that if you work hard, you can experience upward mobility. Yet today, this promise feels hollow for many of us. Many Americans feel that the deck is stacked against them and that their children will be no better off than they are. Our country is built upon the foundation that everyone is created equal, and from this foundation springs forth our right to equal opportunity. While we cannot always expect equal outcomes, we must ensure that every American has an equal chance to succeed. Success should not depend on being born into wealth or privilege. It should be based on hard work and the desire to achieve. So what has our government done to establish equal opportunity? Well, they reformed labor laws in the New Deal, and they declared war on poverty in the Great Society. We have the minimum wage, right to work laws, workers' compensation and unemployment benefits, child labor laws, overtime pay requirements, and the Equal Opportunity Act. All of these seem good, but you've probably heard the saying, how's that working out for you? Let's take a look at the facts with respect to income inequality. During the last 40 years, productivity in America has increased by more than 90%. However, high earners took most of that for themselves, leaving everyone else essentially out. Low earners' real wages increased by only 4% during that time, middle earners by 14%, and high earners 56%. And get this, CEO pay increased by a whopping 1,322%. Looking at it another way, the top 10% of earners used to take in 1/3 of all income, but now they take in half. So the income gap is getting wider and wider. There is economic prosperity for the elites, but little to none for the rest of us. For those of you that believe that the system is rigged, these facts clearly show you're right. Income inequality is closely tied to upward mobility. And it's tied actually to a lack of upward mobility. Where we see income inequality, we often see a significant lack of upward mobility. So what's it like in America? Well, in America, a child born in the top 20% has a 10 times greater chance to end up in the top 20% than a child that starts out in the bottom 20%. Instead of calling it the New Deal, they should have called it the Raw Deal. Well then, what about poverty? Surely we must be winning the war on poverty with all of those government programs out there. There's Medicaid and Obamacare, housing assistance, earned income credit, child tax credits, supplemental nutrition assistance, supplemental security income, and temporary assistance for needy families. These are all great programs, but as it turns out, the poverty rate in America has not declined one bit during the past 50 years. It's remained essentially steady, ranging from 11 to 15%. Would you call it a victory if you fought a war for 50 years, spending, as we have, almost $15 trillion and gained no ground? Our government has failed to help folks escape the cycle of poverty. Those who are living in poverty have essentially zero upward mobility. Aren't you tired of this baloney? It's bad enough that we have to take this abuse, but our children as well? What did they do to deserve this? Can we sit idly by and allow them to be economically oppressed in the same way that we are? We live in one of the richest countries in the world, yet one with a poverty rate higher than most other wealthy nations, even higher than Mexico. A child born into poverty here will most likely remain poor for the rest of their life. There's an old adage in sports that if you're winning, don't change anything, but if you're losing, change something. We are clearly losing the battle for economic equality, so we need a different approach. There's a lot of talk about inequality these days and about how certain groups of people are being treated unfairly. And there's a lot of activity by those who are sympathetic to set things straight. These friends of the disadvantaged mean well, but they are being misdirected by myths propagated by politicians and the media. The true reason that we are losing the war on inequality and poverty is that we have focused on the wrong solutions. You can't fix a broken arm by taking aspirin. Sure, it'll make you feel better, but it doesn't take the place of a cast. Can America become a nation of economic equality? Absolutely we can. So hold on to your seats because this is how it can be done. First, let's look at poverty. To understand it, we must follow the life of a boy born into poverty in America. The boy is living with his mother in government housing. From the very start, he is at a tremendous disadvantage because there is no father in his life. Well, why is this? In part, it is due to the fact that if his mother gets married, she will lose her government benefits. Being the sole adult in the home, she is busy just trying to manage and has little time to provide oversight for her son or help him with his homework. What's more, the local school that he attends is one of the worst in the city because it is underfunded. He doesn't have the opportunity to attend a better school because it's too expensive. He ends up getting much of his education on the streets, where crime, gangs, and drugs thrive. If he's lucky enough to stay out of trouble and graduate from high school, then he just might attend college. With his substandard education, though, he is unlikely to graduate. He ends up getting a low-paying job. The executives where he works get big raises, but not him. And with his limited education, there is little chance for promotion to a better-paying job. He will remain living in poverty, and the cycle will continue, generation after generation. So, how do we end this cycle of poverty? You may have heard the saying, "Give a man a fish and feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish and feed him for a lifetime." Welfare is great, but it has a fatal flaw. It's based on giving a man a fish and feeding him for a day. He comes back hungry time and time again and never improves his lot in life. Welfare always provides a handout, but never a hand up. It should do both. The most powerful tool in the war on poverty isn't being used at all. That tool is incentives. Incentives that encourage the right behavior and incentives that discourage the wrong behavior. It looks something like this. First of all, don't take away benefits if someone gets a job or gets married. Those are good things. So keep the benefits coming. Also, provide parents with school of choice and vouchers so that they can select the best school for their kids. Provide bonuses for children who get good grades. For example, $1,000 per semester per child. Use tutors at the schools to provide individualized support and encouragement, making sure that no child falls behind in their studies. For adults who want to further their own education, pay them a monthly stipend to cover their living expenses while they're studying. And also, just as with kindergarten through 12th grade, provide trade school and college tuition-free. With a good education, a person can break the chains of poverty. Teach a man how to fish and feed him for a lifetime. Can America win the war on poverty? Oh, yes, we can. All right then. How do we achieve economic equality? Leveling the playing field so that every worker will be fairly compensated. Well, we need to understand that executives set pay and benefit rates. It's only natural that they treat themselves to the lion's share of company profits. Regular employees don't have any say in the process, and politicians have made it much more difficult for them by enacting so-called right-to-work laws. These laws are disguised as something good, when in reality they rob workers of the ability to negotiate for a fair share of pay and benefits and for better working conditions. As a result, we need a national union, one whose membership is voluntary, one that comes at no cost to the worker because the administrative costs are covered by the government, one that serves the workers and does not serve itself like the current unions do, and most importantly, one that gives workers a voice to demand pay and benefits that are consistent with the value that they add to the company that they work for. Can America become a country of equal opportunity, a country of economic equality, and a place where every citizen has a path to upward mobility? Yes, we can. You betcha. Well, I wish I could tell you to simply go out and vote for the politicians that support these initiatives. But as it turns out, there aren't any. That's why I have created the American Patriots channel. We stand for the restoration of America to ensure that our government is a true servant of the people. We can take the steps that I have outlined here today, which will lead us out of these dark economic times and back to an America that stands for equality and prosperity for all of its citizens. Come, join us. Please subscribe to this channel and share it with others. Thanks for watching.
Many months of sacrifice and self-discipline lie ahead, months in which both our patience and our will be tested, months in which many threats and denunciations will keep us aware of our dangers. But the greatest danger of all would be to do nothing. The path we have chosen for the present is full of hazards, as all paths are. But it is the one most consistent with our character and courage as a nation and our commitments around the world. The cost of freedom is always high, but Americans have always paid it. And one path we shall never choose, and that is the path of surrender or submission.